All right, let's try this again one more time. Welcome to everyone to Sand to Soul. This is a show that we do every Tuesday morning at 11 a.m., or we try to. We've been off for a few weeks due to illness and other things, but we're back. And I'm Stuart Fournier. I'm your host and co-host, I should say. And I am a 26-year veteran of the real estate world here in Los Angeles, and specifically the South Bay beach areas are my specialty. And I'm happy to introduce my lovely co-host.
Hello, everyone. My name is Anastasia. I am known as your loan queen, and I am a mortgage broker out of the South Bay, Redondo Beach. But I'm also do a lot of loans in Texas and Florida. And welcome, everyone.
Well, we had an exciting weekend, I guess, of sorts. Everyone was kind of un, given notice that maybe this war would be over, and we want to talk about that a little
Yes.
bit later on in the show. We're going to be on for about 15 minutes here, and we're going to talk about maybe some of the effects that that will have because, during the last 6 months or so, or however long it's been, there's been a lot of questions about how that's going to affect the market, how it's going to affect pricing, how it's going to affect loans. And Anastasia is going to address the loan aspect of it in just a few minutes. But I wanted to start off today, Anastasia, talking about some sort of principles about what you should be concerned with when you price your home. And the reason I do this is that, I'm always inspired by the advertising advertisements that are done by the huge conglomerates like Zillow and Homes.com, and how they try to create trends and concepts. Homes.com the other day was showing how you could actually see the house and hear the audio and have pictures. And I thought that was kind of funny because we do that anyway. They just market it differently. And so
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
got on this sort of high horse about telling people what to be anxious about and what not to be anxious about. So we're going to break this down in terms of what you should consider when you're selling your home. I'm not going to get into a big seminar about that. Obviously, that's a presentation that a realtor will come to your home and take about 20 minutes to explain if it's done correctly. And so today I just want to talk about a couple of principles. First of all, one of the stresses that people, I think, take on is the fact that when they price their house, they think that that's the price that they're going to have to sell it for, no matter what. And they get the
hmm hmm
impression that, for example, if they were put their house on the market and someone came and made them an offer at that price, they'd have to accept it. And I just want to reassure everybody that that is not the case. There, it's a subject I can go into in detail, but basically, no. The price that you decide to put your house on really is the negotiation start of where you think
hmm
your house is going to be sold for. So get over the anxiety of thinking that that's what I have to sell it for. You don't have to sell it for that price. Um, the other thing is that I use what I call a 5% rule. And I was taught this early on in my career by an experienced veteran, and it's served me well for obviously 26 years now. And it's even more applicable nowadays because we have so much technology online. And the rule that I use, I call it the 5% rule, is generally, when you go online, you'll figure out what your house is worth within about 5% if you want to be responsible. Okay.
hmm
We don't necessarily know what the exact price is, but if you price your house, for example, 5% higher than the market, you're going to find out very quickly, or anything higher than that, I should say, you're going to find out very quickly that you've overpriced your house. If you've priced your
hmm
house 5% less than, say, the average, you're going to have a lot of people knocking at your door, right? So, what I usually
Can
tell
I ask you a
people,
question on that one? Is
sure.
that price per square foot, right? Because I think a lot of, maybe home sellers are not necessarily aware that it's the price per square foot that matters because maybe your neighbor has 2,000 square feet and you have, 1,800 square feet. So that number will obviously be adjusted depending on the size of the property. Is that what you're talking about? Or, can you
Well,
can you elaborate a little bit on what price you're discussing here?
sure, sure. Two things that you brought up. First of all, it's a great question because people love to use per square footage when they really get into it, especially you engineer types. Boy, if there's anything they're going to use in terms of a negotiation, it's that slide rule, right? I'm joking, that talks about per square footage. Per square footage is undoubtedly a big variable, but in many ways, per square footage is a starting point. In other words, just like there's an average cost based on the typical three bedroom in a particular neighborhood. Yeah, you get a sense of where you're going with whatever the average is by using the square footage. But again, the square footage is not a determining factor, it is a important
Mm,
factor. There are other determining
mhm.
factors, and that being then the more important one, the most important one is an emotional attachment. Okay. So if you walk in
Mm,
and you're going to negotiate just the square footage, but you've got somebody else, another party walking in that says, I want this house, square footage goes out the window. That's not to say that you don't, hold yourself responsible and
sure.
hold everyone else responsible for the price as a result. But it is a variable that is not just
It makes
uh,
sense. The
the
emotional
CPI.
kind of eBay where your heart is, palpitating and you want to be the winner. Another question for you. What if, you have the bigger lot with the smaller house and your neighbor has the smaller lot with a bigger house on it? How does that factor in when you're pricing a home?
Well, it's another good question because if you have that situation, what you're doing is establishing lot value. Now, one of the things that I do when I look at a house, the first thing I do, no matter whether it's a tear down or a $10 million brand new house, I look at the land value first to determine
Mhm.
the foundation by which you build upon taking all the other variables and applying them because the land
That's
value
exactly
does
how an appraiser would look at it too. For the loan
right.
process, that's good that agents, look at that because it's the same methodology.
Absolutely. And one of the reasons that we do that is, of course, we are looking for lots for builders all the time. And when we look for a lot for a builder, not only do we have to give, the statistics at the time, but we have to predict 18 months out because that's generally how long it takes to build a home. Here in the South Bay, between 18 months to 2 years. Anything built a little faster than that, then we have other issues we want to talk about. But generally, 18
Mhm.
months is about average. And yeah, we have to predict 18 months out. So that gets to be pretty tricky. So the point here is that there, as you can see, many variables that go into deciding the price. What I was talking about was a more generalized idea of once you do those things and you're getting close to getting a sense of what your house is worth, what you're actually going to price it at. So try to use the 5% rule. I think that works. Days on market, all right, you want to look at the other houses that you've compared to your house and see how long that they have taken to sold. We've talked about this many times on the show. Anything under 30 days is a fast market, so you want to be right on top of recent sales. That means that there's a lot of people buying, but not that much inventory, and the variables and the markers are changing, every 2 or 3 weeks. So anything over 30 days, that's a traditional market. 30 to 60 days is pretty traditional in terms of the days on market. And then, of course, anything over 60 days, when you get into 60, 90, and 120, is a market that's much slower. Okay. So again, I've already mentioned this. The price is just the starting point. Take the stress off yourself when you price your house, because let's face it, the number one reason that you have a lot of stress about putting the price on is you don't want to leave any money on the table. And I get that. But that shouldn't always be the most emotional part of it because the fact of the matter is that is not the way the buyer's looking at it. The buyer's looking at it as a case of have you priced it within 5%? Have you priced it lower? Have you priced it higher? And you will find out eventually whether you have by doing that. And then the last thing I wanted to mention was beware of offers that seem too good, wherein there's a sense of, well, they're offering me my price and maybe more, but I don't really have any other offers. And do they know that? Which they will. And is their intent really to renegotiate during the inspection period? Because really, and we've
Mm,
talked about this on the show before, the inspection period is when the sale really happens. That's when everyone decides we're moving
mhm,
forward. We are going to close on this house. This is our house now. And what I've seen recently in the last few years is people very cleverly being very congenial and giving a lot of great type of incentives to buy a house with the intent of really at the point of inspection making a big deal about inspection issues that should not be made a big deal of, and thereby trying to renegotiate. And that is a real stressful situation for both the buyer and the seller because you're already 2 weeks into the transaction. Everybody's excited, everybody's moving
mhm.
forward. Anastasia, you're working with people on the loan part, you're working your tail off to get it done, and then all of a sudden we had this renegotiation going on. So when you're selling your home, make sure that your realtor is, keeping you apprised of what their impression is of the buyers in that respect. So those are my tips for the day in terms of sellers. Obviously, there's a lot more to this in terms of the actual price for your particular neighborhood and what's going on with your particular market. Please do not pay attention to national trends. Do not pay attention to even regional trends. Pay attention if you're actually going to put a price on your house as to what's happening on your street or a few streets over. That's how
Mhm.
specific it becomes. And of course, that's where, as professionals, we go out there every week and we're looking at the houses. We're not just putting charts up and getting an idea of what the price is. We're actually going out there and looking at a house that looks similar to yours or just like yours. So, again, just a few sort of principled ideas here. So, Anastasia, I wanted to ask you obviously, we have
Sure,
big
I love
news.
that.
Thank you. Obviously, we have big news about the war, and hopefully, it is coming to an end. I think it is because the Iranians said it was. I'm getting a little political now, but I think
Yeah,
when they have agreed
obviously,
to
yeah, it needs. Yeah,
but
we have both sides are in agreement that some sort of deal was signed.
exactly,
In the last few days, we did reach to day 108 of the war. In case anybody was counting, I was. So
we
not
all
sure
were.
if that feels long or short to the rest
Yeah.
of you. It felt long to me. And the unfortunate side effects of the war is the Strait of Hormuz, which has about 30% supply of oil that went through that strait, that was cut. And when you don't have a 30% supply, and you still have the demand, that was what happened to the oil prices. The oil prices went up. At one point, they were $122 a barrel. Now they're slowly, inching down to, $80 to $90 range. It's still high. And so what has happened is, unfortunately, the war lasted longer than a quarter, and most economists predicted that if the war lasts longer than a quarter, then it will have a more permanent effect on our economy because of the inflation. So oil, unfortunately, because it was elevated for longer than it needed to be, is now affecting the cost of goods. And just because now oil is cheaper does not mean it's an immediate effect on the rest of the cost of goods and everything from fruits and vegetables to lumber to even airlines. Everybody was affected by the oil prices worldwide. So in terms of the interest rates, I think a better number to trend is inflation. Even though maybe now oil, we're going to see, some softening of how much that cost is, the inflation still continues to be elevated. Tomorrow is Kevin Walsh, who's now our current chair of the Federal Reserve. It's going to be his first meeting tomorrow. And one of the things we all have to collectively look for is his commentary that ends up happening after the meeting. We don't anticipate him doing anything to the prime rates tomorrow, and prime rates are not mortgage rates. But what we are looking for is an indication whether he thinks a rate increase is still on the calendar this year. If he says yes, if he's still considering potential, not even a rate cut, but he actually is considering to reverse the effects of the inflation, he's actually going to increase the prime rate. If he does say that, or if there's any indication by the other members of the Federal Reserve, if they're going to say some commentary to that effect, the interest rates are actually going to go up instead of down, even though now the war is over, which has occurred consistently over the last few times the Feds meet, and right after the meeting, we can see an immediate effect to the rates in the negative.
Interesting.
So, I think only time will tell. And I think a lot of it will have to do with what exactly is this peace deal. Right now, we think, it's over, but we haven't yet seen
Right.
what did they sign. We haven't seen the
Right.
terms. Both sides have said, okay, we signed something, but what are we
Right.
negotiating, right?
Right.
Besides the Strait of Hormuz, we don't know anything else. So I think time will tell, and we'll know more after tomorrow and after the next coming days.
Okay. So I'm a buyer and I'm thinking about buying in the next 6 months to a year. Really, and we've talked about this on the show before. Just go out and
Yeah.
start selling. The interest rate,
Yeah, I think
yeah,
not hyper focus on rate, and that's what I've been doing with my
right,
buyers. Is it's not about the rate. Let's maybe get you a little seller credit to reduce the interest rate, but it's all about the price because the prices
right,
of home consistently in the South Bay have not gone down. We're in a very specific market where we're very resistant to all of this data that happens outside of, in other
right,
pockets in geography in Arkansas and Ohio and somewhere else. Maybe yes, there's a bigger impact to the price of homes. South Bay will continue to go up, average 5, 6, 7% a year. And I think we're going to continue to see that trend. And so if somebody's waiting 6 months, well, expect to pay 3% more on that
right,
property in 6 months
right,
from now.
right.
So that's
And then,
that's what we're saying. Buy now if you're ready.
right. And to Anastasia's point, that's only been going on for 40 years. You know, in other,
Yeah, exactly. We have a lot of data behind us to suggest that when interest rates go down, prices of homes go up. So if
right,
somebody's on the sidelines waiting for that 6% rate again, they might be waiting for 12 months at this point. Because again, we're seeing the side effects of the war, of the elevated oil prices, and it's going to take probably an additional quarter. So probably by the end of summer is when we're going to see some softening, but
right,
not any immediate, it's not going to drop like a brick. Today 6.5, tomorrow 6%.
right,
Unlikely.
right. Well, great information. I hope we've helped you today. I didn't mention that if you have any comments or reactions to what we're talking about today, you can feel free to put them in the comments section, and we'll be happy to answer. But we're going to call it a show. We'll see you next week, everyone, at 11 a.m. On our Facebook and Instagram channels. And if you have any questions or subject matter that you'd like us to attack, is that a good word? I don't know. To go over
Attack.
attack. There, I like attack, right? We'll give
Yeah,
it
let's
some action.
tackle. How
Tackle.
about
Tackle's
attack or
better.
tackle? Yeah, if you have
Okay.
any questions, feel free to we can even do it off camera. Reach out to us via email and we're happy to answer any questions on there or jump on the show and ask your questions here.
And buyers and sellers, we're always looking to interview and to help you accomplish your goals here in the South Bay. Again, I'm a 26-year veteran. I've been doing this for a long time. Um, I tell people I know where the bodies are buried. No, I don't know if I should say that or not. But anyway, uh, I've been around for a long, long time. Anyway, I'm probably saying that because tomorrow's my birthday, but I'm not going to tell you how old I am, just because then that would seem like I'm
Nice.
bragging.
Happy early birthday, Stuart.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
All righty,
Good day to
everyone.
celebrate.
Thank you, Anastasia. Thanks for all your insight. We'll see you every next week, everyone, at 11 a.m. on Sand to Soul. Bye bye.